Elliot's heart pounded as he stood in the quiet of his vacation home, the letter trembling in his hands. His sister's words sharp, demanding, and cold sliced through the serenity of the cedar-scented air. They wanted this place, his sanctuary, sold for profit, and they'd stop at nothing to get it. The Haven, as he called the rustic cabin nestled in Washington's Olympic Peninsula, wasn't just a house. It was where he and James had dreamed of a future, where every knot in the wooden walls held memories of laughter, love, and promises cut short by James's death 2 years ago. Now, his sisters, Claire and Vanessa, saw it as nothing more than a cash cow to fund their lavish lifestyles. Elliot's phone buzzed on the oak table, snapping him back to reality. Maya's name flashed on the screen. "Elliot, you okay?" Her voice crackled with concern when he picked up. She'd been his rock since James's accident, the one who'd sat with him through endless nights of grief. "They're not backing down, are they?" she asked, already knowing the answer. Claire, 35, and Vanessa, 38, had always been relentless, their entitlement rooted in a childhood where they'd been handed everything, while Elliot, the youngest, scraped by on resilience and quiet determination. "I can't let them take this place," Elliot said, his voice low but firm. "It's all I have left of him." The Haven was more than a weekend getaway. It was a monument to the life he and James had built. They bought it 5 years ago, pouring their savings into every detail: the slate fireplace, the wraparound porch, the garden where James had planted wildflowers. The thought of it being torn down for condos made his stomach churn. Maya arrived an hour later, her curly hair bouncing as she stormed through the door. "Those two are vultures," she said, tossing her bag onto the couch. "What's their latest move?" Elliot handed her the letter, his sister's signatures scrawled at the bottom like a declaration of war. They claimed the property was family-owned because their parents had loaned Elliot a small portion of the down payment, a loan he'd paid back with interest. Now, they argued it gave them rights, demanding he sell or face legal action. "They're bluffing," Maya said, her dark eyes scanning the page. "They can't just take it." But Elliot wasn't so sure. Claire, a corporate lawyer, had a knack for twisting truths. And Vanessa, a real estate agent, knew exactly how much the Haven was worth in today's market. Together, they were a storm he wasn't sure he could weather. That night, Elliot couldn't sleep. He wandered onto the porch, the cool night air brushing his skin as he stared at the stars. James had loved this view, calling it their slice of forever. Losing the Haven would be like losing him all over again. But fighting his sisters meant diving into a battle he wasn't equipped for: legal fees, emotional exhaustion, and the risk of fracturing what little family he had left. The next morning, Maya dragged him to a local diner, insisting he needed food and a plan. Over pancakes and coffee, she laid it out. "You need a lawyer, Elliot. Someone who can shut this down fast." She'd already called a friend, Lena, a pro bono attorney who specialized in property disputes. Lena agreed to meet them that afternoon, and for the first time in days, Elliot felt a flicker of hope. Lena's office was a small, cluttered space in Port Angeles, filled with files and photos of her own family. She was in her late 40s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. "Your sister's claim is shaky," she said after reviewing the letter. "The loan was repaid, and the deed is in your name. But they're banking on you folding under pressure." She leaned forward, her voice softening. "This place means something to you, doesn't it?" Elliot nodded, his throat tight. "It's where I feel him," he said, barely above a whisper. Lena didn't push, but her expression told him she understood. She promised to draft a response, warning Claire and Vanessa that their claim wouldn't hold up in court. But as Elliot left her office, His phone buzzed again. A text from Claire, "Sell now, or we'll make this ugly." Back at the Haven, Elliot and Maya sat by the fireplace, the crackling logs doing little to ease the tension. "They're not just after money," Maya said, her voice heavy. "They're punishing you." She was right. Claire and Vanessa had never accepted Elliot's life as queerness. His relationship with James, his refusal to fit their mold of success. The Haven was their chance to take control, to erase what they couldn't understand. As the sun set, casting golden light through the windows, Elliot made a decision. He wouldn't let them win. The Haven was his, and he'd fight for it not just for himself, but for James, for the love they'd built, and for the life he deserved to live. The next week was a blur of strategy and sleepless nights. Elliot and Maya turned the Haven into a war room. Papers strewn across the dining table, laptops glowing with research. Lena sent a formal letter to Claire and Vanessa, outlining the weakness of their claim and warning of legal consequences if they pursued it. But Elliot knew his sisters they wouldn't back down easily. Claire's response came swiftly, a cold email dripping with legalese, accusing Elliot of defrauding the family by keeping the Haven for himself. Vanessa followed with a voicemail, her voice syrupy but venomous. "You're being selfish, Elliot. Think of Mom and Dad." Their parents, now retired in Florida, had stayed out of the fight, claiming neutrality. But Elliot felt their silence like a betrayal. They'd never fully embraced his life with James, always tiptoeing around his identity with polite discomfort. The loan for the Haven had been their one gesture of support, and now Claire and Vanessa were weaponizing it. Maya, ever the optimist, tried to keep Elliot grounded. "They're just noise," she said, pouring him coffee one morning. "Focus on what you can control." She'd taken a week off work to stay with him, her presence a lifeline in the chaos. Together, they dug into old financial records, proving the loan repayment, and gathered photos and letters that showed the Haven was Elliot and James's dream, not a family asset. But the stress was taking its toll. Elliot's dreams were haunted by James's voice, urging him to hold on, and by his sisters' faces, twisted with greed. One night, he woke in a cold sweat, the weight of the fight pressing on his chest. He stumbled to the kitchen, where Maya was still up, scrolling through legal forums. "You need to sleep," she said, but her own eyes were rimmed with exhaustion. "I can't," Elliot admitted. "What if I lose this place?" Maya reached for his hand, her grip fierce. "You won't. We're in this together." Her words steadied him, but the fear lingered. Losing the Haven wouldn't just mean losing a house, it would mean losing the last piece of James he could still touch. Lena called with an update. Claire had hired a high-powered attorney from Seattle, and they were pushing for mediation. "They're trying to wear you down," Lena warned. "Mediation sounds neutral, but it's a trap to pressure you into settling." She advised Elliot to stand firm, but the thought of facing his sisters in a room, their judgment bearing down, made his stomach twist. The mediation was set for a Friday in Port Angeles. Elliot arrived with Lena and Maya, his heart racing as he stepped into the sterile conference room. Claire sat across from him, her tailored suit a stark contrast to his worn flannel. Vanessa, beside her, avoided his gaze, her fingers tapping impatiently. The mediator, a middle-aged man with a practiced smile, outlined the process, but Elliot barely heard him. His sister's presence filled the room with a suffocating tension. Claire spoke first, her voice clipped. "This property is a family asset, Elliot. You're hoarding it for sentimental reasons, while we could all benefit." Vanessa chimed in, her tone softer but no less cutting. "You don't even live here full-time. It's sitting empty, wasting potential." Elliot's hands clenched under the table, It's mine, he said, his voice steady despite the storm inside. I paid for it. James and I built it. You have no claim. The mediator tried to steer the conversation, but Claire's attorney jumped in, citing the loan and family contributions. Lena countered with evidence of repayment, her calm demeanor a shield against their aggression. The session ended without resolution, but Elliot felt a shift. Speaking up, even in that hostile room, had ignited something in him, a resolve he hadn't felt since James's death. As they left, Maya squeezed his arm. You did good, she whispered. But Claire's parting words echoed in his mind. This isn't over. Elliot. Back at the Haven, Elliot found a small box in the attic, filled with James's old journals. Reading them felt like hearing his voice again, his hopes for their future, his love for this place. One entry stopped Elliot cold. If anything happens to me, promise you'll keep the Haven. It's our heart. Tears blurred his vision, but so did a fierce determination. He wouldn't let his sisters take this away. The battle escalated. Claire and Vanessa filed a formal lawsuit, claiming a share of the Haven based on their parents' loan. The legal documents arrived like a punch to the gut, pages of accusations painting Elliot as a greedy opportunist. Lena assured him their case was weak, but the process would be grueling. They're counting on you running out of money or energy, she said. Elliot's savings were already dwindling, and the thought of losing everything to legal fees terrified him. Maya suggested a bold move: go public. Your sisters hate attention, she said. Let's tell your story. Elliot hesitated. Exposing his family's dysfunction felt like a betrayal, even if they deserved it. But Maya was relentless, contacting a local journalist, Sarah, who ran a blog about community issues. Sarah, a queer woman in her 30s, connected instantly with Elliot's story. This is bigger than a property dispute, she said. It's about family, identity, and standing up for what's yours. Sarah's article, published online, detailed Elliot's fight to protect the Haven, framing it as a queer man's stand against greed and prejudice. It included photos of the cabin, James's wildflower garden, and a candid shot of Elliot, his vulnerability raw. The piece went viral in the local community, shared across social media by allies and strangers alike. Messages of support flooded Elliot's inbox, but so did hate mail, some accusing him of airing family drama for clout. Claire and Vanessa were livid. Vanessa called, her voice shaking with rage. You're dragging us through the mud. Elliot, this is low, even for you. He didn't respond, but her words stung. Claire took a different tack, spreading rumors through mutual acquaintances that Elliot was unstable, clinging to a house he couldn't afford. The smear campaign hurt, but it also backfired. Friends and neighbors rallied around Elliot, offering donations and legal advice. One evening, a stranger showed up at the Haven. Tomas, a 40-year-old contractor who'd read Sarah's article, offered to help maintain the property for free. This place is special, he said, running a hand along the porch railing. I lost someone too. I get it. His kindness overwhelmed Elliot, and soon, others joined, volunteers fixing the roof, planting new flowers, turning the Haven into a symbol of resistance. But the lawsuit loomed. Lena prepared Elliot for court, warning that his sisters might exploit his personal life. They'll bring up James, your relationship, anything to discredit you, she said. The thought of his love for James being twisted into a weapon made Elliot sick, but he steeled himself. He spent nights poring over James's journals, finding strength in his words. The court date was set for early spring, and as it approached, Elliot felt the weight of every decision. Maya stayed by his side, organizing community support and keeping his spirits up. One night, She dragged him to a local bar for a fundraiser organized by Sarah. The room was packed with supporters, their warmth a stark contrast to his sister's cold ambition. A young man, Sam, approached Elliot, shyly admitting he'd followed the story because he, too, was gay and estranged from his family. "You're fighting for all of us," Sam said. Elliot's eyes welled up. For the first time, he saw the Haven as more than his and James's dream. It was a beacon for others. But the night before the court date, disaster struck. Elliot woke to the smell of smoke. Rushing outside, he found the shed behind the Haven ablaze, flames licking the night sky. Maya called 911, and neighbors rushed to help. But the shed filled with James's old tools and memories was gone. The fire was ruled arson, and though there was no proof, Elliot knew his sister's desperation was growing. Fear gnawed at him, but so did defiance. They wouldn't break him. The fire changed everything. The community's support surged, with volunteers rebuilding the shed and local businesses donating supplies. But the incident also hardened Elliot's resolve. He wasn't just fighting for the Haven anymore. He was fighting for his right to exist, to honor his love for James without shame. The arson investigation yielded no suspects, but whispers pointed to Claire's connections in the real estate world. Elliot couldn't prove it, yet the suspicion fueled his determination. Lena worked tirelessly, building a case that leaned on the deed, the repaid loan, and the community's testimony about the Haven's significance. She also uncovered a key detail. Vanessa had been pitching the Haven to developers before the lawsuit, promising a quick sale. This wasn't just greed, it was premeditated. "They've been planning this for years," Lena said, her voice grim. Elliot felt betrayed all over again, but the revelation strengthened their defense. Court day arrived, a gray morning that mirrored Elliot's mood. The courtroom was packed, supporters on one side, Claire and Vanessa with their attorney on the other. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, listened as Lena presented Elliot's case, the loan repayment, the deed in his name, and the emotional weight of the Haven. Claire's attorney countered with a slick narrative, painting Elliot as an ungrateful son hoarding a family asset. They even brought up James, insinuating Elliot's grief was an excuse for irrational behavior. Elliot took the stand, his voice trembling but clear. "This isn't about money," he said. "The Haven is where I found myself, where I loved someone fully. It's where I still feel him." The room fell silent, and even the judge's expression softened. Maya, in the gallery, wiped away tears. But Claire's attorney was relentless, questioning Elliot's financial stability and his lifestyle choices. Lena objected, but the damage was done. Elliot felt exposed, his love for James dissected under fluorescent lights. The trial stretched over days, each one draining. Witnesses testified. Thomas spoke of the Haven's community value, Sarah of its cultural significance. But Claire and Vanessa held their ground, their attorney producing a forged document suggesting the loan was never fully repaid. Lena dismantled it, proving the signature was their mother's, not Elliot's. But the audacity of their lie shook him. Outside the courtroom, Maya kept the community engaged, organizing vigils at the Haven. One night, they lit candles in the garden, their glow reflecting off the wildflowers James had planted. Sam, the young man from the fundraiser, brought his guitar, playing a soft melody that carried Elliot through his doubt. "You're not alone," Sam said, and Elliot realized how true that was. The Haven had become a cause, a symbol of love enduring against greed. The judge's ruling was due in a week, leaving Elliot in limbo. He spent the time at the Haven, repairing the shed with Tomas and Maya. One afternoon, a letter arrived from his parents. They apologized for their silence, admitting they'd been swayed by Claire and Vanessa's pressure. "We're proud of you," They wrote, "Keep the haven." The words were a balm, but they couldn't erase years of distance. As the ruling approached, Elliot felt a strange calm. Win or lose, he'd fought for what mattered. He sat on the porch, James's journal in hand, reading about their first night in the haven, how they danced under the stars, dreaming of forever. Whatever the outcome, Elliot knew he'd honor that dream. The waiting was torture. Elliot spent the week alternating between hope and dread, his days filled with small tasks to keep the haven alive, painting the porch, tending the garden, welcoming volunteers. Maya stayed close, her humor a lifeline. "If we lose, we'll chain ourselves to the fireplace," she joked, but her eyes betrayed her worry. The community's support was unwavering, with neighbors dropping off meals and local artists painting murals on the new shed, turning it into a canvas of love and resilience. Lena called with updates, her voice steady but cautious. The judge seemed sympathetic, but Claire's attorney is good. It's not a slam dunk. Elliot nodded, though she couldn't see him. He'd learned to live with uncertainty, but the stakes felt higher now. The haven wasn't just his, it was a symbol for everyone who'd rallied behind him, from Tomas to Sam to the strangers who'd sent letters of support. The night before the ruling, Elliot hosted a gathering at the haven. The lawn was filled with supporters, their laughter and music a defiant stand against the looming verdict. Sam played his guitar, and Sarah shared updates on the blog, which had gained national attention. A queer advocacy group reached out, offering legal and financial support if the case went to appeal. Elliot was overwhelmed, his heart full yet heavy. He spoke to the crowd, his voice cracking. "This place is more than a house. It's proof that love can outlast greed." The next morning, the courtroom was electric with tension. Claire and Vanessa sat stone-faced, their attorney whispering strategies. Elliot sat with Lena and Maya, his hands clasped tightly. The judge entered, her expression unreadable. She began with a summary, noting the evidence, the testimonies, and the emotional weight of the case. Then, her verdict: the haven belongs to Elliot Harper. The plaintiff's claim is dismissed. Relief crashed over Elliot like a wave. Maya hugged him, tears streaming down her face, while Lena smiled quietly. Claire's face twisted in fury, and Vanessa stormed out, her heels clicking on the floor. The judge continued, admonishing the sisters for their frivolous and predatory claim. But Elliot barely heard. He'd won. The haven was his. Outside, supporters cheered, and Sarah snapped photos for her blog. But the victory was bittersweet. Claire approached, her voice low. "You think this is over? You've torn this family apart." Elliot met her gaze, unflinching. "You did that, Claire." "Not me." She walked away, and for the first time, Elliot felt free of her shadow. Back at the haven, he and Maya celebrated with a quiet dinner, the weight of the fight lifting. But the arson lingered in his mind. Who had set the fire? The question gnawed at him, a loose thread in his victory. Lena called later, warning that Claire's attorney had filed an appeal. "It's a long shot," she said, "but stay vigilant." That night, Elliot found a photo of him and James, tucked in one of James's journals. They were laughing, arms around each other, the haven's porch in the background. He traced James's smile, his heart aching but full. The fight wasn't over, but he'd proven something to his sisters, to himself, to the world. The haven stood, and so did he. The appeal loomed like a dark cloud, but Elliot refused to let it consume him. The haven was his, legally and spiritually, and he poured his energy into making it a haven for others. With Maya's help, he began hosting community event potlucks, art workshops, support groups for queer youth. Sam became a regular, his guitar a fixture at gatherings, and Tomas offered to build a small community center on the property. The haven was evolving, its walls echoing with new voices, new dreams. But Claire and Vanessa weren't done. Their appeal leaned on a new angle, emotional distress, claiming Elliot's public campaign had defamed them. It was a desperate move, Lena said, but it meant more legal fees, more time in court. Elliot's savings were nearly gone, and though the community offered donations, he hated relying on others. "You're not alone," Maya reminded him, but the weight of the fight was heavy. One afternoon, a private investigator, hired by Lena, uncovered a lead on the arson. A security camera from a neighbor's property caught a car near the haven the night of the Firea car registered to one of Vanessa's real estate contacts. The evidence was circumstantial, but it was enough to push for a deeper investigation. Elliot felt a mix of vindication and nausea. Had his sisters stooped that low? He confronted Vanessa at a neutral meeting arranged by Lena. They met at a coffee shop, the air thick with tension. Vanessa's face was pale, her usual confidence gone. "I didn't know about the fire," she insisted, but her eyes darted away. Elliot didn't believe her, but he saw something new: guilt. "Just drop the appeal," he said. "Let this end." She didn't respond, but for the first time, he sensed her resolve cracking. Claire, however, was unyielding. She doubled down, sending Elliot a letter accusing him of turning the family against her. "You've always been the victim," she wrote. "This time, you'll lose everything." The words cut deep, but they also fueled him. He wasn't the scared kid she remembered. Was a man fighting for his truth. The community center project became Elliot's focus, a way to channel his energy. Tomas led the construction, and volunteers poured in, turning a corner of the haven's land into a space for connection. At the opening, Sam performed a song he'd written about resilience, dedicating it to Elliot. The crowd, locals, queer youth, allies cheered, and Elliot felt James's presence in the warmth of the moment. But the appeal hearing was approaching, and Lena warned it could drag on for months. Elliot's parents reached out again, offering to mediate privately. Reluctantly, he agreed, meeting them at their Florida condo. The conversation was tense, their apologies sincere but late. "We didn't understand," his mother said, tears in her eyes. "We want to make this right." Elliot nodded, but the rift was deep. He left with a promise to talk again, but no resolution. Back at the haven, a surprise awaited. Sarah's blog had caught the eye of a national queer advocacy group, which offered to fund Elliot's legal defense. The support was a lifeline, but it came with pressure. The haven was now a symbol, its fate tied to a larger fight for justice. Elliot felt the weight, but also the purpose. He was fighting for more than himself now. The appeal hearing was a battle of attrition. Claire's attorney painted Elliot as a manipulator, using his sob story to gain public sympathy. Lena countered with evidence of the sisters' greed, including Vanessa's developer connections and the forged document. The judge, a different one this time, seemed skeptical of both sides, asking pointed questions about the loan and the arson. Elliot testified again, his voice stronger now, fueled by the community behind him. "The haven isn't just mine," he said. "It's a home for anyone who's ever felt cast out." The hearing stretched over weeks, draining Elliot emotionally and financially. Maya kept him grounded, organizing fundraisers to cover costs. The community center thrived, hosting workshops and support groups, its walls filled with art and stories. Sam, now a close friend, moved to the area, helping Elliot run events. Their bond grew, a quiet connection that felt like a new chapter, though Elliot wasn't ready to name it. The arson investigation gained traction, The private investigator found texts between Vanessa's contact and a known arsonist, though no direct link to Vanessa herself. The police questioned her, and she withdrew from the appeal, citing personal reasons. Claire was furious, accusing Elliot of sabotage, but her case weakened without Vanessa's support. Lena sensed victory, but warned Elliot to stay cautious. Claire was unpredictable. One night, Elliot found a letter slipped under the Haven's door. It was from Vanessa, handwritten and raw. "I didn't want it to go this far," she wrote. "I'm sorry. It wasn't enough to heal the betrayal, but it was a crack in the wall between them." Elliot didn't respond, but he kept the letter, a reminder that even his sisters were human. The community center's first big event was a queer youth retreat, drawing kids from across the state. Elliot watched them laugh, share stories, and find safety in the Haven's walls. It was what James would have wanted, a legacy of love. Sam stayed late, helping clean up, and their hands brushed as they stacked chairs. The moment was small but electric, and Elliot felt a spark he hadn't expected. "You're doing something incredible here," Sam said, his eyes warm. Elliot smiled, his heart stirring. The appeal's outcome was still uncertain, but Elliot's focus shifted. The Haven was more than a house. No, it was a movement. He began planning a nonprofit to sustain it, with Maya and Sarah's help. The legal fight had taken everything, but it had given him something too: a purpose, a community, a reason to keep going. As winter settled over the peninsula, Elliot stood on the porch, watching snow dust the wildflowers. James's journal lay open beside him, a passage underlined: "Love is the only thing worth fighting for." Elliot closed his eyes, feeling James's presence, and knew he'd keep fighting, not just for the Haven, but for everyone it had come to represent. The judge's final ruling came on a crisp March morning. "The appeal is dismissed," she declared. "The Haven remains Elliot Harper's property." The courtroom erupted in cheers, Maya hugging Elliot so tightly he could barely breathe. Claire sat alone, her face a mask of defeat. She left without a word, and Elliot felt a pang of loss, not for her, but for the family they might have been. The victory was total, but the scars remained. Elliot's savings were gone, and the emotional toll lingered. Yet the Haven stood stronger than ever, its community center a hub of hope. The nonprofit launched officially, with donations pouring in from across the country. Sarah's blog became a platform for queer stories, and Sam joined the team, his music a constant at events. Elliot and Sam grew closer, their connection deepening into something neither rushed to define. One evening, as they sat by the fireplace, Sam took Elliot's hand. "I'm proud of you," he said. Elliot smiled, feeling the weight of James's memory blend with the possibility of new love. It wasn't a replacement, it was a continuation, a testament to the Haven's power to heal. Vanessa reached out again, this time in person. She arrived at the Haven, hesitant, her eyes red. "I was wrong," she said. "I let greed blind me." Elliot listened, his heart torn between forgiveness and pain. He didn't embrace her, but he offered coffee, a small step. Claire remained distant, her silence a choice Elliot accepted. His parents visited, their support tentative but growing. Healing would take time, but it was possible. The arson case closed without charges. Evidence was too thin, but the community's vigilance kept the Haven safe. Elliot installed cameras, a painful but necessary step. The wildflower garden bloomed brighter that spring, a symbol of resilience. At the nonprofit's first anniversary, hundreds gathered, their stories filling the air. Elliot spoke, his voice steady. "The Haven is proof that love wins, not just for me, but for all of us." Years later, Elliot stood on the porch, Sam beside him, watching kids play in the garden. The Haven had become a national symbol, a place where love, in all its forms, found a home. James's memory lived in every corner. But so did new dreams. Elliot had fought for this against greed, against hate, against despair in one. The chaos had forged something unbreakable, a legacy of love that would outlast them all.